Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to discuss Kentucky's opening night matchup with Southern Miss. You can catch that at 6:45 Central. Kentucky is going to be a 26-point favorite. Mark Stoops back in the Bluegrass State. I think he's now the longest tenured head coach in the SEC after flirting with Texas A&M. Anyway, looking forward to what I think is going to be a big year for the Wildcats. I think this team is being a little bit underrated. We'll tell you why in the video. We'll also talk about Southern Miss and break down the matchup. But first, Chase Robinson, tell us who sponsors our content, please.
That is BetOnline, and they are the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from UFC to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here.
Let's start with talking about Southern Miss's offense. Southern Miss got a very intriguing transfer, Tate Rodemaker, who started and won a game for Florida State a year ago. Tell us what the Golden Eagles will bring in this one on that side.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you kept up with college football last year, the story of Florida State and the quarterback situation there, you heard Tate Rodemaker's name, especially towards the end of the season in that Florida game. And Tate Rodemaker is now the quarterback for the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. And so they've got a experienced quarterback who's played in some big games there at Florida State, now at Southern Miss. He threw for 510 yards in that Florida game last year. And so he takes over at quarterback. And, I think that's really big for Southern Miss to do the things they want to do in Sun Belt football this year. And he's got some great guys around him as well. He's got a very physical running back that comes back in Drake Clark, 429 yards. He averaged about 5.6 yards per carry last year, which is very good. And he's got a good offensive line to run behind. And then you got a wide receiver room who's led by Ty Mims. They're looking to build some depth there. Mims is a great receiver. 39 catches, 445 yards last year. But they're trying to solidify who could be behind him, who's going to be the targets that he'll go to after that. And so that's where they're trying to build some depth. But I mentioned the offensive line is full of guys who have not been on this team. A lot of transfers that they've added to the offensive line. It's a good line. I mean, it's a strong line, but it's still there's not as cohesive, I feel like, as a lot of offensive lines, and so that's a question mark on this team. But you've got a great quarterback, you've got a couple of guys to go to, and you've got a good running back, and so I'll be interested to see how long it takes for Tate Rodemaker to get on the same page with these guys, and if they're able to do that against. I know we'll get to this in a second, against a good Kentucky defense.
Yeah, the two things that caught my ears there that you said, the running back position, they lost Frank Gore Jr. to, I think, the NFL. And, of course, he was their bell cow, but actually the guy now that's getting it is going to average more yards per carry last year than Gore did. So maybe not as big a loss as people think. We'll wait and see. The other thing, that offensive line, they got a lot of guys that have played a limited ball before at some other Power 5 stops. Actually some group of 4 schools and a JUCO kid in there too. But, those guys were reserves. And again, when you are bringing in a whole new offensive line and trying to make that gel in fall camp, that's tough. And I'll tell you when it's really tough, when you're playing Kentucky, because my goodness, this front seven, Deone Walker at defensive tackle, maybe a future first rounder, probably a top 10 overall player in this league. I love their linebacking core. I guess you can count J.J. Weaver as either a linebacker or a rush in. Pick your description there. They've got Jamon Dumas-Johnson from Georgia, who's going to be one of the better linebackers in the league. They got Derek Jackson. He and Weaver have been there a long time. And they got Maxwell Hairston. They got a first-team All-SEC corner who was super productive a year ago. So I just think Kentucky, Stoops has always built this defense around big dudes in the trenches and guys off the edge who can make plays, and they're always good in the secondary. I think that, boy, Southern Miss has got a tough task ahead, because I think this might be a top 5 defense in the SEC this year. So I think Southern Miss has got its work cut out for it on defense. And I think if Kentucky's offense, Chase, is as improved as I think it's going to be, I know that's been a weird situation with changing coordinators and a transfer quarterback every year. And last year, Devin Leary didn't really work out. We will see about Brock Vandagriff. He was 0-3 passing at Georgia last year, but he's a top 25 recruit. They've got some injuries to the running back room, so that's going to be a little interesting heading into the first week. But I love their targets. I think Barion Brown and Dane Key and Jamon Maclin, the North Texas transfer, who had 1,004 receiving yards last year. I think he's going to be that's going to be one of the top receiving trios in the league. That they got the Cox boys back at tackle and center, Marques and Eli. They got Jaeger, Burton. They got Gerald, Mincey from Tennessee at right tackle. I think this is a team where I'm not going to say it's like a top 5 team in the SEC, but I really feel like Kentucky, if Vandagriff comes through, they're just solid across the board. There's no one spot that it just jumps out to me like, hey, they're really lacking here. And I think Southern Miss is going to have its hands full either way. But tell us about that defense. I know Southern Miss really struggled on that side of the ball a year ago.
Worst defense that they've fielded since 2014 as far as numbers go. So it was not a good year for the Southern Miss defense. So it was up to Will Hall, head coach there at Southern Miss, to go find a new defensive coordinator, and he goes to the FCS, to Eastern Illinois, and brings in Clay Bignell to run the defense. And one plus for this defense is he does have some experience on the defensive line. And there were guys who played last year who weren't very experienced a year ago, but they have a full season under their belt. That's Jalen Williams, DeMarco Rowland, Armandus Cooley, and Christian Booth, all along that defensive line. So he does have some experience. They're big guys. They're heavy, and so I think that could be a plus for this Golden Eagles defense. The linebackers, the secondary, that's where they're going to be relying on a lot of transfers. And they brought in Desmond Baker from Western Kentucky, Trey Pigney from Coastal Carolina. There in the middle. And then Jaleel Clemens is back at linebacker. He had 11 tackles last year. The secondary struggled with injury last year. And so they're going to be they gave up like 8.9 yards per pass attempt last year. Just huge numbers. And so they're trying to build some depth around there. Brandon Tolis is kind of their top corner. But he's a guy that struggled with being healthy last year. So they're hoping that he can be healthy this year. Quez McNeil, Michael Caraway, also in the corner position. They have some experience. They're going to be battling for starting roles. And then Jay Jones, they're really high on at safety. They brought him in. He had a good spring, and so they're hoping that he can be an anchor there. And then they've also added Ole Miss corner MJ Daniels to safety. And so they also bring in Mississippi State's Dylan Lawrence to that safety position. They're going to move him to more of a hybrid role in that stringer position. And so they're trying to change some things up. Bignell is and use some of these guys that they've got in out of the portal. But they really want to change things up from last year, from giving up 35.8 points per game and allowing 51 passing touchdowns. I mean, that's tough. That you can't win games like that. And so they're trying to change things up. They were able to bring some guys out of the portal. So we'll see if they can improve in a game like this against a good offense in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think Southern Miss has got its hands full. Kentucky's a 26.5-point favorite for a reason as we do this on August the 16th. And look, I will hedge my bets a little bit here because it's a new quarterback. First time Brock Vandagriff's been on the stage. I think he was going to be fine, but you never know. You could see nerves take over, an early turnover or something like that. So I'm not going to say take it to the moon that Kentucky wins this one in a blowout. The talent suggests that it should. But between that and the running back situation, where there's an injury there, those are things that if you're going to hedge your bets a little bit on Kentucky just going on a romp from the opening kickoff, those are your concerns. But still, I think really, even if the offense struggles, and I'm not telling you it's going to, I'm just trying to war game it in my head here. That defense is so good, so good. And when they're not, Southern Miss is not going to have to block a Deone Walker or JJ Weaver probably all year. And I just think that's where, and in Kentucky, this is a defense that's manufactured some defensive touchdowns against offenses that struggle. I just think if Kentucky doesn't end up in a runaway at the end, I'll be surprised. It just may not start that way.
Right. And I think, and I've said this as I first started seeing this Kentucky defense, they're going to keep them in games. Even if the offense is to sputter, you have a fantastic defense that's going to keep you in games and make things happen. And so it'll be a great test for Southern Miss for the rest of the season, facing what they're going to face with this Kentucky defense.
All right, that concludes our preview of Kentucky and Southern Miss. We are Southeastern 16. We cover football, baseball, and basketball year-round. Kentucky fans, you may know us for hoops already. And I say year-round, we literally have an off-season show in basketball every week. Same thing in baseball, where Kentucky's really improved under Nick Mingione. But anyway, if you like this, I hope you hit the subscribe, hit the like button, tell a friend. Those things help our analytics. And if you're interested in advertising, we reach millions of people every year and we're growing quickly. Reach out to Caroline.Smith at Southeastern14.com. Yes, I know we are Southeastern16.com now, but that will get there to her. So anyway, reach out to her if you're interested. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. You are watching Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.